system, and it's people that behind the system that are perpetuating the system. It's leaders in our country who say fight, 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 fight with all your might. The only problem is they don't want to do it with their kids.
Yes,
they want to do it with our kids.
Sure. All right, Al-Cid, we're going to have to come back to Al-Cid because we have this brother here on that's going to go take us back to ancient Africa.
I'm going to take you back to ancient Africa, and the reason why I'm taking you back to ancient Africa is that all mankind, black, white, yellow, green, pink, purple, all mankind originated in Africa. Some 12,000 years, man began to, or maybe even earlier than that, 150,000 years, man-like creatures began to come about in East Africa. By 100,000 years ago, we know that they were actually human beings who had come together in East Africa in parts now, I guess, Ethiopia, okay. and that part of
like
Africa.
Tanzania
and Kenya, okay?
Uganda.
And for some reason, these people began to migrate, and they migrated north, but they didn't migrate north and west. They migrated north across the land bridge, and they went far east up into what we now call Asia. And from Asia, they moved westward. And the last group of people, or the last place that these people resided, is in Europe. But since childhood, all of us have been taught that we were not even part of this family, that we were not real human beings. In fact, slavery was based on the fact that you could treat these people, they weren't people, these things, in any old way because they were lower than human beings and maybe just a slightly higher than some of the animals that they had around the house, because they were not human. But science has begun to show the lie of this. And if we read, and I wish all of us would read, there are so many books out, there have been so much information that is available that will tell us who we are. And one of the most interesting things that I have read just recently, and that was, I read it in the Bible. Now, I've been in church since my parents baptized me. No one ever told me to read Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verse 7. And I'll quote it. And it says, quite interesting, "And the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. The Lord God also planted a garden to the east of Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. There also was a river flowing out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it was divided and became 4 rivers. The first is named Pison. It flows around all the land of Havilah, where there is gold, high-quality gold, and onyx stone. The name of the second river is Gishon. It flows around all the land of Cush." C-U-S-H. People leaped over, glossed over, passed over the word Cush. Cush is the ancient name for Ethiopia, and some say the ancient name for Sudan. And so the question is, if the Garden of Eden was in Africa, what does that tell about the early inhabitants of the Garden of Eden?
Sure.
Okay? So, I mean, this is in the Bible.
Sure.
Scientists, of course, have dug and found that, as I said before, that these ancient people started in Africa. And as we go down through history, the greatest ancient nation was the nation of Egypt. And starting about 5,000 BC, we have the Egyptians. Well, we have a King Menes who united both northern, or what we call Upper and Lower Egypt. We jump to 3,000 to 2,500, and Egypt introduces the calendar, 365 days. Go from 2,500 to 2,000, and they built the first libraries. And there was the literature and the Lamentations.
Let me stop you there when you say library. I met a brother from Egypt, and we were talking. He watched me studying for years, you know, and he come over to me. We were talking about Alexander, great conqueror that came through. We talked about some of the pharaohs. We talked about a lot of ancient history. And he said something. He said, you know, in Egypt used to be the best library in the world, the biggest library in the world. Yeah. He said, and then
Alexandria?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yes. And he said they burned it down. The Western powers burned it down.
Mm.
And you know what I said to him? And I said, well, you know, he said they burned the library down. I said, well, you know what? Someone knew that you wouldn't rebuild the library. So, in other words, see, it's like if someone was confident enough to know that once the library was burnt down, he said all over Africa, people would come there, take them days, months to get there to study at this library in Alexandria. And he said that, I think he said the Romans or whoever, or Alexander the Great, one of them, burnt the library down. I'm not sure who.
No, Alexander the Great actually, the library was there before Alexander the Great, but Alexander the Great, who wasn't, well, he was Macedonian, whether or not they consider that European or not, but he saw the value of the library, and he increased the library, and he was very much interested in expanding the library. Now, the reason why the library was burned down was in those days as it is now. When there's a war, you try to destroy the best that your enemy has. I mean, we destroyed in Japan. We how many 10,000 people that are shot to bring the Japanese to their knees.
Well, we take Iraq. Most
and Iran. They not only did they destroy the museums in Iran, they looted and took home many of the great artifacts because they said these people are nothing. And I mean, and these people long dated Europeans. So you know, if you're an enemy, you don't care about libraries or art.
Well, let me ask you this right here, but trying to stay on track more with the ancient African history, because I think it's important that every group identify themselves. Like right now, we want to stay with ancient African history because if I was in I've seen settings where the ancient, the more scholarly Asians, when they talk, they don't never bring us in. So you know what I mean? They never include us in this wealth of culture. So I always know that we include everybody. I know it's the liberal thing to do, the right thing to do. But we only got about 10 minutes. I want you.
I think we can answer that question by the fact that because Africa was the very first of the continents.
Yes.
So much of Africa has been destroyed because slavery became the locomotive for the wealth of the rest, especially the wealth of Europe. And you can't enslave a man if you're enslaving him on one hand.